Over the past 2 weekends, we've had access to the reboot of Modern Warfare 2's beta, and as a long-time COD player with more time playing this series than I would honestly ever care to admit, I have a lot of thoughts on this. For context, I played the first weekend on PS5 and the second on Xbox Series X. I want to start with the positives. Firstly, a significant improvement from Modern Warfare 2019 is the map design. They're not the best in the series, but they're a significant step up from Modern Warfare 2019. They generally have more flow with a great 3-lane design. Areas of them can be a little big and a bit much, but the core of the lanes is still there. The issues come with the map design comes back to the spawn system, which I'll be talking to in the negatives. Secondly is the aesthetics. The team at Infinty Ward have honestly outdone themselves with the level of detail and commitment to realism in the textures of this game. The game does honestly look phenomenal. I really like weapon platforms. I love the idea of making the player base experiment with different guns more, and add variety to what weapons people are using throughout the matches, as well as making the grind for attachments less tedious. I also really appreciate that score streaks are back. I wish kill streaks wouldn't return with them, but at least it's an option. Onto the negatives, and I'll be honest, there's a lot. Firstly is the UX and UI. This has probably been the most complained about thing with this beta, and rightfully so. And honestly, I just don't see a way to salvage what's here. Great UX UI is when it's quick and straightforward to navigate, like the vertical system of previous games. What's here in Modern Warfare 2 is the opposite of quick and straightforward to navigate. This honestly needs to be completely scrapped and rebuilt from the ground up. Secondly is the minimap. Red dots when enemies fire their weapons needs to return. It drastically changes the pace of the game and removes a huge learning curve and skill gap that COD previously had. As well as it throws off balance, dramatically reducing the effectiveness of things like silencers and counter UAVs. Another hugely complained about thing is footsteps and the fact that dead silence is a field upgrade. Like many others, I echo the fact that base footsteps are way too loud, and all this does is promote less movement, and constantly pre-aiming doorways dramatically reduces the engagement in this game. Dead silence should also be a perk, not a field upgrade, as it makes lots of modes, especially search and destroy, pretty unplayable. I also don't like perk packages. They feel like an oddity because they're attempting to solve a problem that doesn't exist. It reduces the amount of choices a player has to customize their playstyle throughout majority of the match, so they attempt to be a reward system that is entirely pointless. Kill or score streaks reward the player for their performance. Field upgrades reward the player simply for being in the match. This system is also much less balanced than the previous 3-tiered perk system, and if it's not broken, why fix it when the new system is so obviously inferior? The time to kill. The time to kill in this game is just simply too fast. I constantly thought I was being sniped when instead I was being cross-mapped with an AR. Proper gunfights are barely existent and just reduces the game from being an FPS to instead being a military themed game of hide and seek. The aim down sight and the sprint out times are too slow. These reward players for constantly having their gun up and completely slows down engagements and the pace of the map. Why have mechanics such as sprinting, tack sprinting and the like if you clearly don't want players to use them? Connection. For context, I'm an Australian player, and any other COD I've had has consistently been able to average a 30 millisecond ping. On this beta, I haven't been able to get below 60 milliseconds. I hope the full game isn't like this because the difference is notable and frustrating. Continuous lobbies. This is one of the great features of older CODs. Starting rivalries, meeting people, creating storylines out of the people you faced, and really got interaction within the community going. I would love to see these return to their former glory. Prestige and progression. I know this wasn't in the beta, and we don't know for sure, but I would be shocked if Classic Prestige came back instead of the seasonal one they've been doing recently. I just wanted to get it out there, that Classic Prestiging constantly gave a reason to come back for the player. Resetting your items only to do it again was such an enjoyable loop, that seasonal ranking does not give the same feeling at all. Squad spawns significantly detract from the experience and ruin the flow of the map. Only had to point to the last year's game Vanguard, and how much that improved when they changed squad spawns to a more traditional spawn system. Visibility. While visibility improved in the second weekend, it still isn't great, and I'd love to see it cleared up. Things like the visual recoil when firing your weapon are simply too much when they don't actually affect the actual recoil coming out of the gun itself. It's also hard to distinguish enemies, and I don't understand the reluctance to add the red nameplates above enemies. The system before wasn't broken and works better than whatever this is. The scoreboard. I don't understand removing statistics from the scoreboard. The more information the better, especially deaths in an FPS game, as honestly that's an essential. And lastly, and certainly not least, is the skill-based matchmaking. But I want to talk about this more in the conclusion. Overall, there is a solid COD beneath all these issues. As it stands, it's probably a low mid-tier COD. It feels like it's having an identity crisis between the classic, fast and fluid, easy to pick up and improve nature of the franchise, and something attempting to cater to people who aren't as good or don't enjoy these fast-paced FPS, which is what COD has always been, and the key to its success. So it feels so weird to make such drastic changes. I've played significantly less Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2019, partly because I very much disagreed with a lot of the gameplay changes in and since that game. But this beta has made me come to realise it almost doesn't matter what changes these games do or don't make, because long as the skill-based matchmaking exists like it does, I don't think I'll ever play or care about this franchise as much as I did. Call of Duty was the personification of easy to pick up and hard to master, and with skill-based matchmaking, it makes the latter of that phrase pointless. Improvement doesn't feel like actual improvement. Close games don't feel tense because they are so common. Games where I've played well don't feel as rewarding as I know I'll be slaughtered the next. I very distinctly remember, and have plenty of recordings of, my previous years with Call of Duty. I remember grinding mastery camos as I wasn't completely punished for using off-meta weapons. I remember enemies missing shots when they shot at me. I remember being able to move around the map and read what my team and enemy were doing, as the spawn logic made sense, and was a constant game of push and pull, with lots of different tactics such as holding positions, moving lanes, flanking, and many others. All of these great gameplay, all of these great memories and ways to play Call of Duty are now gone or greatly diminished. This is because of a lot of features, squad spawns and many others, but skill-based matchmaking is definitely, by far, the most impactful. But back to Modern Warfare 2. I think this game definitely has potential. The core solid gameplay and gunplay of this game is great, but a lot of these features around it just diminish the amount of playstyles that actually are viable. A lot of what makes a Call of Duty 6v6 match so tense, so impactful, so engageful is just not here.